the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California, as we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man right in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul, and good morning to all of our viewers and our listeners out there. Again, if it's Tuesday, which I'm pretty darn sure it is, we are talking real estate. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company and managing partner of Saywitz Properties. And if it's one thing I've learned in my many years of doing this, it's to surround yourself with good people, get good information, make good business decisions. And I'm hoping today we are able to share some good information with you folks out there that you can take and use in your own daily businesses. If nothing else, you're going to learn some unique accounting procedures that I think you may not be aware of before. So I'm excited about today's show. And I want to welcome our guest, Jeffrey Helmers, who is the national representative from CSSI, which is Cost Segregations Services Incorporated, on the line with us here from the great state of New Mexico. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. We today, the topic of today's show, for those who are curious, is cost segregations. And if for people that are not familiar with cost segregations as to the concept of what they are or how they apply, that's why we brought Jeffrey on the show. But first, Jeffrey, I want to talk about your background in the real estate and in the accounting world. You're coming to us from New Mexico in the process of making a big move, as I understand it, to Las Vegas. But how did you get into the cost segregation business and the real estate world in the first place?
Appreciate that. Yeah, I've been in sales and management for over 35 years, and it was interesting. A good friend of mine that I've met up in Arizona has a estate planning business in Arizona for over 35, pushing 40 years. And one day we were together and he's talking to me and he goes, Jeff, I need to get together with you and talk to you about cost segregation. It's an accounting method that, man, you really need to look into. And so after I looked into it and I kind of found out more like how it is and what it works and how it works, I realized that, man, business owners today and investors today, they're always looking for ways to save money and create cash flow. And that's what cost segregation does. And so at that point, I was pretty hooked, and I've always liked the real estate business, but man, what a great tie-in to show business owners and investors how they can save money, create cash flow, and scale up on their portfolios.
And so Cost Segregation Services, the company that you work for, is it's a big company, right? I mean, it's a national company. You guys do stuff all over in all states.
Yes. CSSI, we've been doing the IRS defined engineered cost segregation studies for well over 20 years. There was a third-party analysis study done on all the companies in this niche market about a year and a half ago. And the results kind of came back that, we're the number one company in this niche market that provides cost segregation for commercial building owners in the United States. So that's pretty exciting. But also as well as that, we recently acquired Barry, a R&D company to do research and development tax credits, which is exciting, as again we can kind of partner these two concepts and how to save business owners money and create some different tax benefits. But also what I'm really excited about too is that we're the exclusive provider of this revolutionary product. It's called Zip Green. It's approved by the IRS. And it's for the construction and big build out for builders that might be doing multifamily hotels or bigger projects. And it has absolutely huge financial benefits through the federal tax incentive. So it's a good vehicle for them to be able to look into and to use during their projects. Federal government's really has huge incentives to make it worthwhile for them.
So that's a lot of stuff. Let's dig in. And today's show, for those out there, is going to be a little more technical than bigger picture stuff. But first, Jeffrey, I know what it is, but for those folks out there, a cost segregation study, let's start with that. What is it? Why would I do it? And what's the benefit to me as a property owner?
Cost segregation is an alternative method of accelerating the depreciation of a commercial property. It shortens the class lives of the building components. So instead of doing a straight method of depreciation, tax engineers go in and reclassify all the components and assets into smaller categories because not every component or asset depreciates at the same time. So these categories are broken down into 5, 7, and 15-year categories or lives. That's obviously different from the conventional 27 and a half and 39 years.
And I want to jump in because for the average person out there, and I don't want to mess it up in my explanation, that's a very good explanation of it. Typically, if you bought a property, whatever kind of property it is, your accountant would depreciate the building structure, not the land. So if I bought a property, let's say for $1 million, and let's just say for the sake of argument, 500,000 is the building and 500,000 is attributable to the land under the building. I would depreciate the 500,000 that's associated with the building over a typical depreciation schedule, which is 27 and a half years. That's defined by the IRS and by normal accounting practices. The purposes of the cost segregation study, as I understand it, is that you would then take and shorten it so that paint or lights or other components of the building, instead of amortizing it over 27 and a half years, if I could amortize it over 5 or 7 or 15 years, it would accelerate the depreciation, which gives me a bigger tax write-off on the front end, which then saves me money on my taxes. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Instead of depreciating over the straight method, the long 27 and a half or 39 years, you're getting your benefit slowly over time. And again, what cost segregation does, as you mentioned, it through the reclassification process, it accelerates it for tax purposes. So the business owner, so Barry as a business owner gets the full current benefit today, versus a little bit over a long period of time, which creates a huge reduction in tax liability and cash flow.
And if I was going to own the property for a shorter period of time, I could accelerate the depreciation, and then if I sell the property, I could start over again with another property. If I was going to own it for a long period of time and I had no intention of selling it anytime soon, the benefit to me is I get a tax savings now rather than, as you say, a little bit over time. Is that sort of the assessment of it?
Yes, you want to keep to get the full benefit of the cost segregation. At least hold that property at least 3 years. I work with some real estate investors or people that are doing the fix and flips. That's not the cost seg's not for them, for that type of style or what they're doing. So you want to hold the property at least 3 years to get the benefit. But then again, yes, down the road, then you can decide what you'd like to do down the road with that property. What's exciting is that you'll get the benefit, and let's say 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you decide to move that property or sell that property. That new owner will have the opportunity to do a cost seg himself because he's the new owner of the property.
So you can start over. No different than if I sold the property and I bought a different property, I would start over on the different property.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I'll just put my property owner hat on for a second and say, okay, so the benefit is I get a bigger tax savings up front, which would then offset my cash flow on the property. So if I bought an office building or a retail center, an industrial building, or an apartment building, anything that throws off cash flow, assuming it's positive cash flow, I have to pay tax on that cash flow. This cost segregation method would then give me more depreciation, which would hypothetically offset my cash flow, which would then create bigger tax savings, which means I have to pay less taxes.
Absolutely. I'll kind of give you a huge grandiose example. I finished up a gentleman up north in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They just finished up building 120 apartments, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and placed it in service in late November of 2023. So we did an estimated preliminary analysis for him, showed him the numbers, and if he used the straight method, Barry, to depreciate that project, and it was a 25 million hard cost, lands out 25 million.
Right.
His first year depreciation numbers would be that first year, that's where all the benefits at, was going to be $415,000. So we went back in, and engineers deconstructed and went in and put it in all the right categories and pushed it to the current year. His increased depreciation expense was $4.3 million.
So 10 times roughly the depreciation he would have gotten. And then that $4.3 million gets to offset any income that you would have. So maybe you pay no tax in the first year. And then I guess I'm going to ask the question. I know the answer, but for the benefit of everybody else out there, let's say my income's only $1 million and you just got me a $4 million tax savings. What happens to the other $3 million? Do I get to carry it over to next year?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't use it, all that benefit that first year, yeah, it rolls over to the next year. And actually, it's our slogan is "It's your money, keep more of it." So if you don't use it all the first year, it rolls over to the next year, or until it's exhausted.
So, so I get to carry it over, and it could basically wipe out my income again for multiple years to come.
Yes, sir.
And so the risk to me is that then later in life, I've used up the depreciation, therefore I would have to pay the tax later on. The benefit, obviously, is I get to accelerate it and take the benefit today when hopefully it has more value to me and certainly more prevalent because I don't have to wait for it.
Exactly. And again, it's creating that cash flow like you talked about. You look at that 4.3 million increased depreciation expense. Well, on an average 37% tax bracket, that's putting like 1.6 million that he doesn't have to pay out. Well, what can you do with that money that you're not paying out? Well, you could use it to purchase another property. Go back to you, Barry, and say, hey, I want to purchase another property. Or you could renovate something else. Or you could use it to maybe pay down on the principal. Whatever you want to do, it's your money to use it. As business owners, I know today they're looking for ways today to save money and create cash flow, and that's what cost segregation does for them.
And the truth of it is, I mean, in today's environment where cap rates are still very low and interest rates are higher, and in most instances the interest rate is higher than the cash flow, this gives you a better way to save money on your taxes, which creates an overall better return for the property. Exclusive of the cash flow itself, the net after tax really is a much better return than without it.
Absolutely. And even matter of fact, I'll even mention this. Here's what the IRS says, US Treasury says. Cost segregation studies are a lucrative tax strategy that should be considered in almost every real estate purchase. That's not me, that's the IRS. And the thing about with cost segregation, there's so many people out there, very business owners, investors that are unfamiliar with it. What do they say? There's over 70,000 pages of tax code. It's kind of hidden in there as a tax gem, but they're unfamiliar of the economic benefits of what it can do for them.
I mean, yeah, so I guess I'm just going to ask the innocent question. What's the downside? I mean, the downside is I've got to pay you a fee to do the study, but in the realm of things, your fee relative to the tax benefit and the savings to me is nominal. So and the IRS is okay. I mean, I don't have risk of the IRS coming back later on and going, wait a minute, you owe a bunch of taxes. This wasn't kosher. That's not a reality either. I mean, it is a legitimate accounting process approved by the IRS. I would just ask, is there a downside?
There's not a downside because there's two methods of accounting. You can either do it straight method or you can do accelerated. That's just the bottom line. And then here's something else that kind of takes away the straight method theory. That increased cash flow that you would gain by doing cost segregation, if you amortize that through present value, future value, say to 8% for the life of the building.
No, it's exponentially even more, right? I mean, it's even more of a savings.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it goes back to economics 101. There's no way straight line makes sense.
Right. No, I agree. And so it's interesting because I do believe that the more sophisticated investors really do take advantage of this. And we certainly have in our own business. But the average person may not, number one, be aware of it. Number two, understand it. And number three, not know where to go to, get somebody to help them with it, which is why I wanted to have you come on the show and talk about it. So I want to dive in a little bit deeper. So this applies to every form of real estate that is commercial, not your house, right? And so it is retail, it is office, it is industrial, it is medical, it is multifamily. all of the above. You just can't do it on your house. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, and also too, you mentioned there you could rental properties, multifamily, commercial properties, offices, industrial, retail. Matter of fact, there's a gal I'm working with down in Colorado. She purchased a commercial building. Her office is on the first floor, Barry, and on the second floor, they're renovating it completely out, redoing it. They're putting $1 million in that second level to set it up kind of like an Airbnb for traveling nurses. And so what a great opportunity, what a great cash flow business opportunity for her to be able to use that space that way to create that kind of cash flow and still meet the needs of even our community. So it's exciting.
And the other thing that people should be aware of is that if you bought a property, let's say for $1 million, and then let's say you put in, I pick a number, $500,000 to fix it up, you would lump the cost of the improvements into your overall cost of acquisition, and then you would take this depreciation on the total number. So it really provides even greater benefit for somebody who's buying a building of any type or segment of the market and then fixing it up, because you get to depreciate that much more. The other side of it is, even if you bought a property that was in pristine condition or didn't need any work, you would still then be depreciating all of the portions of the building itself on this accelerated basis. I mean, again, no downside.
Yeah, and just one step back too. Also, here's Barry. He owns this commercial property building out there, and one of his tenants, they lease 3,000 or 4,000 space or a couple $1,000 square foot space, a doctor. And if he goes in, Barry, and does leasehold improvements, he does all the build out for his practice, improves that space there. Now, he doesn't own the building, so he can't do a cost seg on the building because that's Barry's building. But all those improvements, leasehold improvements, that doctor can cost seg those.
So the doctor can. So I, as the landlord, can't take advantage of the fact that he spent money on my building, but he could.
Exactly. And kind of getting back to what you brought up too. So yeah, we look at the purchase of like you said earlier, the building, take land out, and then if you have improvements and renovations, you add that in there to get the base cost, and that's what's going to be cost seg. That's what's going to come in and be broken into 5, 7, and 15-year categories so that you can get the full benefits of cost segregation.
I mean, and I see this really applicable across the board, but for, as you mentioned, a doctor or somebody who bought a small office condo, which typically those would have a higher price per square foot than buying the entire building, you've got a greater overall price per square foot, but then the cost seg is going to have that much more value, because if you're buying a condo in a building, your land value is nothing or very low, and so that makes the value of the building or the bricks and mortar itself that much higher, which gives you more to depreciate.
Yeah, it's really a great tool. A lot of people really don't look into, or the doctors don't think about, because they're busy. They're so busy of what they're doing. The opportunities of that build out there that they put in, and they average 5, 6, 700,000 when they build these out. How that could really benefit. They worked hard. They got all this going on. This is what they can use to reduce that tax liability rate in the first year to help offset everything else that they are up against. So
this is on top of the fact that if I got a loan for the construction as the building owner, or I got a loan for my improvements, even a business loan or an SBA loan as a doctor or something like that, I'm getting to deduct the interest on my loan in addition to this accelerated depreciation. So it's a double sort of, bump.
Yeah, here's kind of piggyback what you're saying, and it makes it kind of exciting. I have clients and I've worked with different banks that have relationships with them, and a lot of their clients are looking at cost segregation because it's money that they didn't have, right, Barry? They didn't have it. So by using this tool, we created that cash flow for them, and people that are looking at different ways to use it, they could use this to pay down the principal.
Or go to the Caribbean or all the above.
Or go on go on vacation, right?
Right, anything. So let's talk about the process itself. So it all sounds well and good to me. I've done it. I would just say to folks out there, it makes perfect sense. You should look into it, certainly. When is the best time to do the cost segregation? Is it right after I buy the property, right after I do improvements? What if I've owned the property for 10 or 15 years? How does that work? And is there still a benefit at that point?
And those are all wonderful questions. Yeah, the best time to do it, as we all know, is right after you purchase a property. Um,
And the answer
but
to that is because you have not yet depreciated anything of the building yet, so you still have the full value. If you've owned it for 10 or 15 years, you would have already depreciated on the straight line method on your tax return those 10 years already, so it reduces the amount that's left to depreciate on the cost segregation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And after you purchase it, and if you're going to turn around and just kind of like Molly's doing, putting in some improvements, renovations, you want to wait till those are all completed, all done, and your business is ready to be placed in service. Then you want to do the cost segregation because you get the benefit of everything. Everything's done. You just purchase a building, you just put all the renovations in, improvements in, you're good to go. So you get the full benefit of cost segregation
With the
and
highest amount, right?
at the highest amount. Absolutely.
All right, so let's say I like it and I want to do it, and I call you and I say, okay, Jeffrey, what do I do? Walk me through kind of the process of how it works. As a property owner, what information do you need from me? How long does it take, and how's it go?
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, when I run across people that are interested, we talk about it. And again, there's probably 99% of the people I'm talking to are unaware of it. Their CPA may have referred them to me and said, call Jeff, you need to look into a cost segregation. And it'll say, hi, Jeff, I talked to Barry, and Barry said to talk to you about cost segregation. What is it?
Right.
So I go ahead and explain it to them, just like what we're doing today. And they go, so what's my next step? So what we do is I gather some information from them. What we need is like the building type, square footage, what was the cost, the purchase of the building. Are you going to do any renovations or improvements? When was it placed in service? Is this short-term or long-term rental? And there might be a situation where, of course, if they're doing some improvements right away, we'll need some AIA documents, or we could use a depreciation schedule. I get that information, and what we do is run a no obligation preliminary analysis. We'll just run some numbers, Barry, see if it makes economic sense. You can look at it yourself with us. We'll look at it together, talk to your CPA. If it makes economic sense, we'll move forward. Those take about 24 hours. We come back and with an estimated a number of what this property would look like, and then they decide if they'd like to move forward, then we go from there.
And again, for those people out there, they come back and they'll any cost segregation company would do this, but they'll give you a spreadsheet and basically show you what your new depreciation schedule looks like and what the tax benefit savings would be, or the gross benefit savings, and then you can apply it to your own tax, bracket. But it'll show you on an annual basis. So going out 3, 5, 7, 10 years, what does that look like? As an alternative to just not doing it in the first place, and then you can see the savings. And then from a time frame standpoint, let's say I like it and I go, fine, I want to do this. What's a typical time frame to complete a property? And obviously a bigger property, maybe a more complex property, may take a longer period of time, but give us a ballpark of how long it takes.
Yeah, actually, we'll after they decide to move forward, we do a data collection. So we let them know what we need. We could use, like I said, documents, AI documents, appraisal, a floor design. Some of them have sent on some larger projects, like the one up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They sent us
The
all the
architectural
drawings,
drawings, right? A
yeah,
rent roll, what have you.
everything, yeah. And then if they're smaller, just putting some improvements in it, a couple 100,000 or whatever, we need a ledger of improvements. Where'd that money go? So when the engineers go back in to disconnect and put all the components or assets in the right category, we know where we're going. Actually, when we get all the data from them, and a lot of them are really great about getting it to us the next couple of days or less than a week, it takes 4 weeks after that, we're completed.
So pretty quick timeline in terms of the turnaround. And then as part of the process, you guys either do a physical inspection or a Zoom inspection or something to verify the components of the building of what the owner is telling you he put in or what exists, so that you have documentation for it for everyone's sake and to be able to show the IRS if someone came knocking on your door.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, after we collect all the data and they've engaged and they know what we need, we've collected the data. We'll contact them because they'll set it up with us on who will be there. Who do we need to contact for a site visit? We do a boots on the ground site visit. No virtual. We're there and take pictures. Actually, if you got really technical, we're not going to go too into a big deep dive, but if you look under the tax code, the chapter 3 talks about that the IRS wants a physical site visit.
Gotcha.
That's
And which is fine. I mean, so you come out, you do the inspection, and then you do the report, and then a month or so later, you've got this report, and then what do I do with that report? I give it to my CPA, right? Because I don't know what the heck it says. I just know I want to save money. And my CPA will then tell me, hey, here's the depreciation that you got. This reduced your taxes by X amount. Actually, it's more depreciation than what you owe in taxes, so you're going to get to carry something over to next year. And the depreciation schedule, so in your analysis, there might be $4.3 million in year one, but you're going to have an additional depreciation in year 2 and 3 and 4. It may drop down, but you might get $4 million in year 1 and $3 million in year 2 and $2 million in year 3. It's all still more than what you were getting before.
Yeah, it just rolls over. It is cumulative, and again, with some of the larger benefits, again, they can manage that with their CPA. That's best fit for their business and what they're doing. So yeah, it works out great. And excuse me, and again, there might be a situation, and I'm sure you're aware of it too, is that it could even show a loss. Cost segregation can even show a loss, so you can eliminate it. I had a gal that did cost segregation with up in Arizona, and her tax attorney told her to do one, and she owed a huge tax bill. And so when we got done, she was so excited. She goes, I don't know anything. Thank you for doing what you guys do.
Yeah, of course. And then the other, I guess, question that I was going to ask is in terms of I get a physical report, right, that you guys ultimately would send out at the end of the day. So I have it and I keep it. And so if I change accountants or somebody asks me, I have the backup and the data. And my other question is this a one-time shot? Do I go back in 5 years and do it again, or it's good for life?
Each cost segregation is one time per property. So it's kind of more the one and done on each property. And because there's no amending at all. So you do a cost segregation, no amending required at all.
And in terms of your fee, or typically anyone's fee, the fee is a fixed amount. It's a dollar amount. It's not a percentage of the savings. It's not a percentage of the building, right? I come up with a fee. You decide if you want to pay the fee. And if you think it's worth it or not, you do it.
Yeah. Some companies do it a little differently. Ours is a flat fee. We do a flat fee no matter how many hours it takes to get it done. And so that makes it real nice. There's no surprises. Here's what it is. And obviously the business owner needs to know that, hey, this can be expensed as well. So let's expense the fee.
Right.
So
that's the other thing is the fee itself is a business expense. So if you were in hypothetically a 50% tax bracket or whatever your bracket, you're saving that much more even on the taxes. So to me, there's just no downside. We've done it a bunch on our end. I get excited talking about it. It makes me want to go out and buy a property just so I can do the study, right? So I can get the tax benefit.
Yeah, it excites me to be around folks like you doing it because they're just overwhelmed, And so then, when they realize they can write it off, so their actual out of pocket is like, are you kidding me?
Right. And I think, even for the first time investor or somebody who's saved up and wants to buy a property and says, hey, I'd like to buy a fourplex or I'd like to buy a small office building, they're just not aware of it. And then when you start running the benefits of it after tax, I'm not suggesting somebody overpay for the property, but if you are buying at a higher price per square foot or a higher purchase price, this study will make you feel a little bit better about your overall investment at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And again, for folks like that, this again is a great tool to help them scale up their business because they can do it multiple times a year and they keep continuing, like you mentioned earlier, keep their tax liability down or what they owe low. They can use that money to purchase additional properties and work different strategies out to acquire more properties with the money that they normally wouldn't have had.
I got it. It makes perfect sense. So if people want to find out more information about you or the company or the process, what website can they go to check it out?
Actually, yeah, you can go to kind of all in capitals, J Helmers, HELMERS CSSIstudy.com. It's my site. You can go on there. There's enough information that you can have 2-3 pots of coffee reading it and understanding more how it works. There's an opportunity there if at some time you're looking at would like to have a preliminary analysis and obligation. There's a link there. You can do that, and we can run the numbers and see if it makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good. Otherwise, if you haven't done it, you can Google cost segregation study and there's more information, or we've pretty much covered the gamut on it. Anyone who listened start to finish, I think, should be more educated than when we got on the air. So with that said, Paul's waving at me that it's almost time for lunch or his coffee break himself. And so I want to leave it at that. Jeffrey Helmers with CSSI, thank you for being on the show. Good luck with the upcoming move yourself, and best of luck in the coming months, and appreciate all of your input and insight. It was very informative, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, and so for everybody out there, all of our viewers and our listeners, thanks again for tuning in. If it's Tuesday, we are talking real estate. We will see you back here next week. I'm Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company. Thanks to everyone here at OC Talk Radio for making it happen. We'll see you here next time on Let's Talk Real Estate.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation.